What's up, fam?
Yay! What's up, fam?
Good to see your face and voice, all the above.
How are you? How
I'm
are
good. Lots of big changes, lots of moving pieces. I'm actually in the process of selling this home and moving to Massachusetts, where I'm from. Yeah, like big changes. Yeah,
That's huge. Didn't you haven't lived in that home that long?
like a year, like a year. Yeah, we've moved. This will be our fifth move in 4 years. We've really just like tested out a lot of different places in LA and things, and having obviously two kids, having my parents around, and my brothers and grandparents, and the whole village. It really is so true. No matter how nice the home is, or family is the key, and like having that support for Victoria and I is like going to be so awesome. So yeah, we move in like a month.
Gosh, you're going to snow. How does Victoria feel about that?
He's actually really excited. It was her idea. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's
My kids
awesome.
love snow too. We went to Utah a few months back to play in the snow, and they just were like swimming in it. Like couldn't get enough of it. Like our we had a real estate agent there, so we were looking there as well, and he was like, "They're from LA? Like they were born in LA?" I was like, "But I'm from Massachusetts. Like they've got my blood too, so like they love it." So, yeah. How are you? I miss you.
I miss you too. I'm good. I mean, all things considered, Teddy, I'm back home in Toronto. I'm in a safe place. I've got health insurance. Like, like there's just like things to be grateful for. It is hard to keep motivated, that's for sure. I went back to school.
Wow.
Yeah. So I'm in a graduate certificate program, just try to keep my brain busy while
Mhm.
we're all on hiatus. Like
Yeah.
that's the most you can do. And I don't have kids and things like that. And so I have the freedom to take on some things that
Mhm.
I wouldn't have, right?
Yeah.
So it's been great. I got back into acting a little bit, doing auditions here and there,
Nice.
just trying to like keep myself creative without feeling like I need to be in a creative space around creative people.
Hmm.
Because I know that's where that's our lifeline. And so a lot of us are been disconnected from that for a very long time. And so that's finding some other way to be creative has been really helpful. Hence this podcast. Like I'm like, how can I still tell stories? How can I still be creative? How can I be around people and see people that I love and connect with? So yeah, it's
Amazing. I love that.
yeah,
I,
it's been good.
Toronto's one of my favorite cities, always has been. It's such a just international city, and there's so much there. Obviously, I've heard from dance studios there that the lockdown's been pretty hardcore there, which is understandable. But when the city gets back going and stuff, it's always like such a fun place to be, and I love the scene there.
Yeah, I mean it's a really special city. I often forget because I'm away from it so often. Um, and I haven't really gotten to connect with it since I've been back, obviously. But
Mhm.
I remember how great it is, and coming back and looking at it in a new light and figuring out how I can be more of service here in the arts industry than I ever have before, because I've really sort of disconnected, and my whole life and career has been in the US. And so it's nice to get to be forced to get to know my city and forced to get to know the arts community and hopefully be a part of getting it back, right? Because every city is going to have its challenges, and I know we will certainly have ours. And I want to be a part of that. So yeah, I mean, we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I'm in the best place I could be in this time, as hard as it's been.
That's
You know? Yeah.
yeah. Um, some of the best, like through the break the floor conventions and stuff, some of the highest level training and just dedication wise, artistically, some of the great to like some of the greatest studios that come to the events are from right around that area, and it's so inspiring. Just always since we were growing up as kids, like that area would always be like, oh god, the Toronto studios are coming. Like here we go. Let's step up. Let's get going.
Yeah, we have some hard workers here. We have some really talented people, and I think we often don't get credit. And I think that's part of my next journey, as a arts facilitator and as somebody who just loves uh, the medium so much, especially dance, I want to be a part of like making sure that we really solidify what we've given to the industry, and because there's so many of us who were reared here and then like went out and did incredible things,
Mm-hmm.
and we don't celebrate it enough here,
Mm-hmm.
and I think we should, and hopefully that will be what's next.
Do you know Amy? Do you know Amy Gardner?
No.
She's I met her a long time ago. We worked together here and there. She might be based in Vancouver or Montreal. I'm not actually exactly sure, but she just started a thing called Dance Haifa, and it's essentially like connecting, like it's like a booking agency almost in a way of like
Mm-hmm.
connecting dancers to directors and producers,
Oh,
and
beautiful.
it's really really interesting. She had talked to me about it like a few months back, and you guys would get along like really really
Great.
well. She's like awesome person, such good vibes, and just she does a lot of music videos and like
Mm.
creative direction stuff, and it's so cool to see like where her career has gone to. But I feel like you guys would connect on a lot of different like topics and things.
I'll search her out. Thank you for
Yeah.
that. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, so thank you for, I know you've got family and all sorts of stuff, so because we could probably catch up for like an hour before this.
A long time, yeah.
Yeah. And it was good to see your face in LA last year. That was such a pleasant surprise. But basically, this is sort of a passion project for me. I realized that in the pandemic, one, we needed stories of inspiration. That's a huge part of me doing this, and also I just find that there's a generation of people that don't. Let me rephrase that. There are people in the industry that don't understand how much of a village it takes to become successful, because they're not seeing the work behind, they're not seeing the relationships that you cultivate over years, they're not seeing the downtimes. They're, our lives online are heavily curated, even though some of us are living in the best way that we can possibly be. And
Mhm.
this podcast for me is about like celebrating those people that have helped you get to that next place, and telling those stories of success through that lens. So I'm super happy you're joining me. The podcast is called Spacemakers.
Mhm.
So let's get to it with Teddy Forance.
Yeah.
I want to talk first about, you come from a legacy of dancers and dance educators. So talk to me about the guidance of your mother and your dance family in Boston that you are now going to go back to.
Yes. Yeah, so my great grandfather was a dancer. He was actually from Toronto, from Canada originally. He's
Why
French
did I not
Canadian.
know that?
Yeah, I know. I should have told you that a long time ago, right? And he was actually in an orphanage up there, and he learned a little bit of movement in there, and then like gymnastics and a lot of different like just like different things during that time. And then he moved to work in some of the factories in East Hampton, Mass. It was like a printing shop. And he also continued to dance there and kind of did it for just a hobby and for fun and a passion. He had my grandmother, and then when she was like 8 years old, they would do these like circus kind of duet acts. And then years later, of course, I joined Cirque du Soleil, and that's where we met.
Right.
But they did all these like really incredible duets where she'd be like flipping off his shoulders, and they would have props, and they would do things, and like there's like this little father-daughter duet act, and there's like pictures, and I wish there was videos, but that was in the 30s, and then they built a following, and people were like, hey, start a dance studio, we would love to come take class and learn from you. And he was also a tapper and really heavy into acrobatics,
Right.
and a little bit into ballet. And my grandmother really fell in love with ballet, but their house was their studio, and he had like 500 dancers in the 30s and 40s. He started it in 1934, um, and then yeah, he like started there, and like it just blew up like very quickly because there weren't a lot of dance studios. So
Wow.
he built that, and then he ran it for about 25 years. And then my grandmother, my nana, who had my mom and my aunts and my uncles, my mom's one of five in that family, and my aunts, they all continued to dance and really fell in love with it. They were heavily into gymnastics, and my mom was like close to even like going to the Olympics back then, and like really really into it. And then I don't know if you remember Frank Hatchett.
Yes,
Frank
of
Hatchett
course.
was run this
Legendary.
legendary. Yes,
Yeah.
he's one of my favorite teachers as well. But my mom was in his dance company in Springfield, Mass, which was like 10 minutes from our house. So she then moved to New York when he was like, "Hey, come to New York. You know, you should audition for Broadway shows and be in my company, and we'll be there." So she was in New York for quite a few years, and then moved back. She fell in love with my dad, and they moved back, and she started running the studio with my grandmother. And then they switched it to from their house, from my grandmother's house, to the studio that we're in now. We've been there for about like close to 40 years in the building, and it's, you know, I love going back and just like seeing all the old photos, and just brings back just so many cool moments of inspiration for me too. Of like,
You're like an American Dance family.
yeah, it's like
I love this.
yeah, it's you know, truly every time I go back, I just like get such a creative vibe. Also from the nature around there, it's just such a beautiful place to grow up, and we spend so much time hiking and out in nature. And I feel like a lot of my inspiration comes from the elements of nature, and having that time and place to kind of grow up was really special. And then my mom, just seeing her run the studio as a business owner. My dad is also has his own kind of tech company, so that's kind of where my younger brother Johnny, who is now running the CLI video department at CLI, learned a lot of his tech
Oh,
savvy stuff
really?
from my dad, and just seeing them run businesses and being entrepreneurs, and you know, dealing with parents and people, and you know, conversations, and just the things that unconsciously I was around at a young age of how to handle certain situations politely and respectfully, and as a business owner. Later on down the line, I think really helped me in a lot of ways. But as far as creatively, my mom still just, I call her for advice. I'm like, this piece isn't making sense. How do I draw the character more into this like plot? Like, she always just makes sense out of a story, knows how to build stories, and something that I've always admired from her, of how to build, you know, these epic productions and these opening numbers for recitals. And she makes the costumes by hands out of household items, and just like constant inspiration of how to create with being resourceful of what you have. And then when my mom when my mom and I used to travel a lot to go to dance conventions and everything, she'd always be like, "Hey, go say hi to that person. Like, I can see you're inspired by them. Like, go say hello. Just go say something. Like, go say like, I love the way you dance," or, you know, just anything. Just go introduce yourself. And I was always pretty shy early on. And so she was like, "Get up there, go meet friends, make friends." So she always really helped me in that way to get out of my own comfort zone and just like go up and talk to people. And I think that's like one of the key things in this industry is like communication, and being okay in the unknown of like, I don't know what I'm going to say, but I'm going to go up and say something, and just, you know, smile and see somebody, and build that relationship through a hello and through something there. So
Oh, I
she
love that
continues to
she's still
inspire
so
me. But
present. Yeah, that's really beautiful. She's still so. I remember you speaking very highly of her when we worked together, and so I was curious where that journey that, but I didn't realize the legacy that you have with your family, which is incredible. So your dance voice, when did that click for you? And who was helped guide you in that place?
I used to have these when I was like 4 and 5. I'd be in my nana's living room, and they would play like Les Mis, or like, you know, these really epic
Of
songs.
course.
And we'd, you know, we'd all kind of, I was the firstborn grandchild of my family, so there was just a lot of like audience essentially. And I kind of knew that from an early age and enjoyed that. I remember just being like 4 or 5, or even younger maybe, because I had diapers, and like I would always wear one sock for my turning foot and barefoot, so I could, you know, grasp the groundedness of the other foot if I fell. I just remember looking at the floor, and I would like see my nana's floor, and just like know I was about to go into something, know I was about to explore something, and through improvisation and through that feeling of like, you know, there's people watching, I'm being seen, but also discovering something myself, and that feeling I always really enjoyed, and then kind of just kept building, and then from there started being like, ooh, what if I like put this to like counts or music, or like set choreography, And then by 8 and 9, I started like just gathering any friends or like my cousins to be like, I'll play a game of basketball with you or soccer if you like come learn this combo. And like
The
started
negotiation.
gathering.
You learned the negotiation early.
Yeah, like I'll play a game if you come and learn this phrase real quick. So I'd always pull my cousin Nick, who's also a dancer, and we just would make up for endless hours, just 8 counts on 8 counts and 8 counts, and who's ever basement or outdoor space or at the studio, there'd always be like one little room in the back available, and we'd be like, all right, cool, let's create this 8 count. And then through there, like my mom would just kind of hone in, with me on like, what if you put this here, did that there? She really honed in with me and started letting me teach around like 16.
Oh, so you started early.
Yeah, I started early at the studio with the recreational classes, and
Right.
she would sit there and kind of view my classes, and she'd have a notebook, and she would, take notes and give me good advice and say, you said, like, and, you got that. She would like literally like write those down and tally mark how many times I would say it in class. And she's like, you said, 157 times. And I'd be like, oh, damn. Like, I guess I did. Yeah, you're right. So she, really kind of at a young age, like helped me realize what I was doing and how to, best articulate myself in those classes. And then I would say when I was 17 and I started working with Mia Michaels, that was the big next mentor for me who, really.
How did that evolve?
Yeah, so she saw me at New York City Dance Alliance when I was 16, and she saw me perform my solo and was the judge, and came up afterwards and was like, hey, come to this audition next week in New York City. It's a job for an artist in Athens, Greece, and there's 6 dancers that will be joining the tour. It's actually a residency in Athens for 6 months, and I was just blown away. My friend Al Katafi, who's my best friend, and he was like, I'm the assistant, and I'm also going to be going on it as well. So I just wanted the job so bad, and I was like, this opportunity with Mia, who's my favorite choreographer, was just a dream. So I showed up to the audition and honestly was just scared out of my mind, and they'd already been through like 1,000 dancers, and it was myself, Ruthie Inchowski, Kay Howe, Noel Bahandas, Al Katafi, and Mark Marvelous, and myself, and Cindy Salgado, Jason Winters, and Mia were running the audition. And we did like crumping and house and improvisation and contemporary combos and partnering, and it lasted like 6 hours. I almost threw up like 3 times.
I mean,
yeah. It's intense. It's intense.
Yeah.
And at the end of the audition, she was like, I would like to take you guys out, for some food and hang out for a sec. And at dinner that night, she informed us that we all booked the job. And I can still feel that feeling because it like changed my entire life right there. It was just like a life-changing moment of like, oh my God, how is this real? Oh my God, I'm gonna live in Athens? Like what? And yeah, I turned 18 over there, and it was just like unbelievable experience. She, really gave me an opportunity that just completely shifted my whole mindset on performing, dance, arts, like everything in general. All the dancers a part of that project were, became really close friends and still are, close friends. And then we met on Cirque like 6 months later, Delirium.
Probably 6 months later?
It was, because I got the call in April when we landed back in the US. Like 2 weeks after I landed, she was like, hey, do you want to come and audition for a Cirque show? I want you and Noel to be a part of it. And I called Noel. I was like, bro, did you get the call? You get the call? He's like, yeah. He's like, girl, I'll be there. I was like, okay, cool. Let's do it. So we go to New York, and we honestly had thought we already had the job, to be honest. From conversation, we were like, we don't really need to audition. We thought we had it. And we get there and like, actually, you know what? You should audition. Like, throw some clothes on. You should audition. So it was kind of a last minute, like, yeah, you know what? You should do it. And that also was a really intense audition, the Cirque training and everything they require in the auditions. And we had to drop into our splits at one point. And Noel, he was like 2 feet off the ground, like, I didn't know what I was getting myself into. Oh my God. So that was a blast. We had so much fun with that. And that show and meeting all of you guys and the artists, and
Yeah.
it was just like a combustion of artistic flavor and
Sure.
eye-opening, you know, how people prepared for the show and how, you know, just the overall show itself and being a part of something that large and that big scale was a dream come true. And then
And
it
then
was.
after that, you continued to work with Mia, correct?
Mhm.
So what was the journey in that?
We worked together for about 4 years after that, and I assisted her on, and I didn't leave her side for about more than 2 weeks for the whole 4 years. It was like a
Oh, wow.
2 week break, but besides that, we were like just constantly working on projects. Celine's tour, which was amazing. Of course, the bench piece on So You Think with Travis and Heidi, and that was kind of like a groundbreaking moment to be a part of. I did like 3 seasons of So You Think, and then, you know, different gigs and projects and the
Conventions,
Pulse.
and you did the convention stuff with her too? You did the convention circuit?
Yeah, the convention circuit of the Pulse on tour, which was amazing. And yeah, being around someone who is truly a genius and truly has just like such a vision and will go to the nth degree to make that vision happen, showed me so much of, you know, what it takes to be great, you know, what it takes to rise to that next level and continue to kind of outdo yourself. And I'll never forget the morning of the bench piece of the performance. She woke up and she was like, I don't like the piece. We need to change the whole thing. And I was like, it's like 5 a.m., 6 a.m. She calls Jillian Myers, who's the assistant with me, and she's like, let's go to the studio now. We're changing the whole piece. We changed almost the full piece the day of the show. And when the dancers got there, Travis and Heidi, they were like shocked. They were like, what? Like, we're changing the show, like the whole piece. And we did. And it was a big time risk. But when we sat there in the audience that night and they performed it, the second it finished, like, we had chills. We were like, that was the right decision.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that was truly the right decision to make. And she won the Emmy for it. And moments like that, I admired her strength and her resilience of like, when you don't feel it and when something isn't true to you in your art form, change it. And no matter how last minute it is, go for it 2000% and do whatever you can to do it. And from there on, I kind of was like, wow, like that was national television that she did that. It wasn't like, you know, a small gig. It was a big deal, and you know, it was something that she was still remembered for that piece. So that showed me a lot in that way. And we continue to talk, and we're friends, and
Beautiful.
you know, I love everything that she's brought into my career in life.
Yeah, she's a huge space maker. You're not the only dancer I know that she's made space for and nurtured under her wing, and she's a big mama wings that
Really.
like take people in, and it's really beautiful to watch. So your So You Think You Can Dance experience was as an assistant, and then you've worked with some heavy hitters. I mean, Lady Gaga, Kylie, Usher, Florence and the Machine, like among others. Um, you're a contemporary dancer in spirit and in heart, but you're going into the commercial world. So who helped you make that transition? And then was that a huge shift artistically? Like what was the process in that?
Well, I grew up doing more jazz, lyrical a little bit. Contemporary wasn't around when we were younger until I was like, I don't remember having like an actual contemporary class. So I was probably like 15. So it was mainly like jazz, hip hop, you know, lyrical, modern, ballet, tap. So I was, you know, more known for the lyrical contemporary side, but I was heavily trained in those other styles. I'll never forget when I saw my mom do the wave for the first time in hip hop class, and I just thought it was the coolest thing in the world. I was like peeking through the crack of the older kids class, and I was like, what is that? That's the coolest thing. So I'd be in my room for like 5 more years. And I had some dancers at the studio at my mom's studio that I really looked up to that were heavily inspired by hip hop and moved to New York and then came back and had training with Rhapsody. And So I really
Another
love
legend.
another legend, yeah. And I would go and take Rhapsody's class in New York City at BDC when I was a kid because it was only like a 3-hour train ride to New York. So I loved,
Oh, only.
yeah, only a 3-hour drive. You know, it's like, all right, cool, let's get into the city. So I always loved hip hop and I always loved the commercial stuff. I had even grown out my hair to be like Brian Friedman when I was like 16, 17.
I mean, didn't everybody want to be Brian Friedman?
Everybody,
Didn't matter
yes.
what gender. Like,
Yeah, right. Just want to be Brian. He's the best. Um, but I was touring the Pulse, and Gil Doldalow, Janet's choreographer, had seen me, and we became friends and stuff. And he was like, "Hey, I have an opportunity for you." I showed Janet Jackson your freestyles and your movement.
guys, just for a moment, this is pre social media. This is pre going viral in any kind of way. Like, just low key showing Janet his work because he's that great. Just letting y'all know. Okay, keep going. Keep telling
Yeah,
the
it
story.
was a crazy moment. Gil was like, "Hey, do you want to?" Janet would like to meet you. She wants you to come and be a soloist on her tour. And essentially, you would freestyle and be a character in the show while she is having her changes. And I like threw my phone up in the air. I was on the beach with my friends. And I just remember like throwing my phone and like running in the water after the call, like, oh my God, what? Are you kidding me? I was freaking out. So then I went to, he was like, come to the feedback audition, which was a music video that she was doing. And so I went to the feedback audition and I got up and I was like, you know what? I'm going to learn this choreo. Like, this is dope choreo. Ed Moore was a choreographer. I loved his movement. And I ended up booking the music video as one of like the ensemble dancers. And that kind of broke the ice to learn like all the tour choreography of Rhythm Nation and If, and we were in 25 pieces in the show. And
It's like that's Janet and certain artists like that. It's like you don't dance more ever in the show. Ever.
It's a little windy right now, so we're going inside.
Okay, come on.
But yeah, so I got to do Janet's tour, and that really kind of set up the commercial aspects of my career. And maybe like, introduced me to so many different people, Jillian Myers and Tony Testa and all these, brilliant commercial dancers, Misha Gabriel. And then from there, it kind of segued into Lady Gaga and later on Madonna.
And when you worked with Gil, would you say that he was your thread between those worlds and that into that world?
I would say it was more of an awakening of possibilities that he introduced me to, of like, hey, you can do this. We just booked you for, the tour and the videos. And, I just loved the environment. I loved the people. I loved, coming from, it was very serious in a lot of ways, but I felt like in a lot of ways, commercial dancers like have so much fun and just are a blast to be around and very like outspoken and outgoing and, have a lot of fun. And I just enjoyed like those moments as well. Whereas, and a lot of times I felt like I was very like serious, and working with Mia, like we're very, heavy artists, very deep, very, we like to go into those different realms of darkness and lightness. And like, we really go in, not that we didn't have fun, but it was just a different perspective, which it was so nice to get both perspectives on the dance industry in general. And, yeah, it brought a lot of fun things. I technically had danced for Usher, but this goes for all, future dancers that you get to put on your resume as well. But I was on stage for like 13 and a half seconds and I did like a headstand and was part of like a group of 40 people in the American Music Awards. And I did a headstand, did this a few times and then exited stage. And technically I danced for Usher though. It was pretty funny. And everyone thought like my whole town was watching. And my friend Devin Jameson, who is one of like the lead dancers in the actual like real choreography, we kind of look alike. So they were like, yo, you were killing that. You were killing that. I was like, yeah, sure. Yeah. I was really the headstand guy that you can't even see because there's like fireworks going off. But I was there. I was definitely there. So yeah, fun stuff like that too, where it's,
well, and I think those moments too humble you.
Mm-hmm.
Because we go from such highs to that midway where you're like, what's happening, and then real lows. And so those moments really humble you. Like, okay, I'm just one of many talented, creative, spectacular people out there, and this is the
Exactly.
opportunity that I was given, and okay, and you take it and you press on and learn. Yeah,
Hmm.
that's a great that's a great story. So talk to me about your Shaping Sound journey, the doc series, the process. Being on a creative team, as we all know, it's not easy, especially with heavy hitters like Travis, who are visionary choreographers and have, it's that's a really beautiful and intense environment, I'm sure. So talk to me about that.
Yeah. So Travis had got hired to do Dancing with the Stars, like when Macy's was doing like Macy's Stars of Dance, where they'd pay essentially for a performance. And Travis got asked to do a performance, and he brought in Tyler Peck and his brother Danny Tidwell at the time. And we had nothing but strings, those like hip hop violin artists that were just unbelievable. And we had been listening to their music for a little bit, and we were just like so inspired about it. And Travis did such an incredible job, like pulling everybody in. And Misha, myself, Nick Laz, Travis, of course, Jamie Goodwin, Taja. There was a bunch of us on that project, and I'll never forget going back and watching it that night and the feeling that we had of the camaraderie and just the energy and just like, wow, we just did that. Like that was our favorite performance we'd ever done.
Mm.
So the energy was there, the passion was there, and the camaraderie and the friendship was just naturally there. And we were like, wow, like we had a week or two to do it, and then like it's over. Like we should do this more often. We should do something. And that's kind of when we came up like, let's create a company. Let's do
Mm.
this. Um, and then cut to Generation Four, my family's workshop, which ended up being a very last minute thing 12 years ago. My parents were like, let's do like a bigger extended workshop from what we normally do at her local studio. And we ended up last minute, like midway through the week. It was only, like a week long. We were like, let's do a show. Like, let's try this out. Let's make a show. And we had, at the time, 75 dancers in the program. And we created a full, like, 45 minutes to an hour long show. We stayed up through the whole night every night and, like, didn't sleep the whole
Of
week and
course.
created a show. And it was just like such a monumental moment for us of like, again, like, we just did that. Oh my God, we came together, we edited the music, we figured it out. We wanted to pull each other's hair out, but like we got there and we like ended up doing the performance.
Mhm.
So then about like it was actually the end of that show on Sunday. Travis got a call from a producer,
Mhm.
Jerry Silverhart in LA here, famous producer, and he was like, "I want to do a reality show on you, Trav." And Trav was like, "I'll do it, but I want to do it with my friends about us starting our dance company." So Trav brought us to the meeting
Good for
with,
him. Good for him for
yeah,
advocating for himself in that way. Excellent.
it was cool. It was really, we were honored to be a part of it. Trav had already blown up as a choreographer in the industry, but definitely was reaching new heights at that point in 2011, 2012. And we were all just about to move in together in Glendale in a house. So we were all about to, go on a journey together.
Mhm.
And then it was about, I think, like a year later, we started filming the show and started doing, creating an actual pieces and a show, and then also the reality show at the same time. And during, like any process, there's the unknown of like, what are we about to get ourselves into? Like, they say one thing in the beginning, like, oh yeah, we're gonna air your whole show at the last episode. It's gonna be amazing, blah, blah, blah. It's classic, TV producers talking like this, and you're like, yeah, like that sounds great, let's do it. And you're like, by the end of the process, we're like, this was nothing we'd expected. Oh my God. I actually have never seen the last episode because I was honestly so upset with how it turned out, to be honest.
Okay.
I did not like how it turned, the drama into the
Yeah, they
whole
turned it
thing.
into entertainment, reality entertainment. So yeah, it had to have, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so I never even saw the last episode because I
They
heard that
even show your show in the last episode. Do you know?
it was a montage of like 2.5, 3 minutes of it, and it was like to like music that we would never dance to. It was like boom,
Oh,
we're like, yo, we would never even dance to that, you know. I do have to say, you know, there were a lot of really special people. Some of those producers on the project that were with us and actually working with us, I still respect them today, and like they were like aunts to us and like just so
who
sweet. And
were they? Do you remember
um,
the names?
yes, Kat Rodriguez, and you know, it's been so long. I forget the director's name. She was amazing as well. Loved working with her. Um, you know, and they have things to answer to as well. So it's always someone from a higher up level saying, you know, we can't use that cut, or you know, we're not gonna. I don't know what actually happens, but you know, it
There's a
turned
lot
out.
of there's a lot of decision makers in that
Yeah,
process, and so it's not just even though it may be one person's vision. There's a lot of people have their voices heard and having to compromise and make decisions in those processes. Yeah, yeah, it's tough.
it was tough in a lot of ways, but you know, in the ends, it booked us the big deal with Gil, who owns Break the Floor. He
Mm.
ended up investing in the company because we were looking for an investor essentially, and he saw it and really, you know, we had talked to him with our manager at the time, and he ended up coming in and investing in the company, which is what got us our tour. And you know, the tours were just unbelievable. I'll never forget the day when we were all sitting there after we'd rehearsed for a few months. The tour buses came up and pulled up into the parking lot, and we were like, "Oh my God, this is real! This is real! We have our own tour bus! Like what?" And the trucks and everything, and you know, getting on the tour bus, you know, is like one of the coolest feelings,
It
and
is.
such a tight, intimate group that you become because of, you know, you're literally sleeping 6 inches above or below somebody and someone's snoring, or, you know, there's, you know, so
Yeah,
many
it's like instant family. Yeah.
instant family. So many good times, and the shows were really, I thought, just a blast to perform. Our first show that we had done was, I'd say, more on the entertainment side and really high energy, really fun, a lot of jazz and like sing, 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 and
Mm.
uh, more of the showmanship and I think the performance quality. And then the second show we did was also written by Son Lux, who is one of our favorite artists, and him and Trav had worked together for years, and he wrote original music for it and also some of his like classics. So and Trav directed it and did an amazing job, like, you know, building characters, and everyone had an individual name and character and driven line, and so it was much more in depth. You know, we had aerial stuff that Trav was flying around from, and like just a whole different level of production
Mhm.
that we explored. And you know, there's never enough rehearsal time
Mhm.
as a performer. You know, sometimes there is actually too much. I've been in a few processes where like, okay, this is a lot. Let's just get on stage. This was like, you know, we had 20 rehearsals essentially to put on a whole show, you know,
Mhm.
with budget and everything. So we went all out, and it was, you know, stressful and fun and terrifying all at the same time.
What
And
did you learn the most in your shaping sound experience? Like, what's the big takeaway in that experience?
biggest takeaway for me personally, uh, I think like learning to stay calmer. Like I feel like when I don't
Mhm.
know what I have to do, or like because Trav was more so the director and choreographer of the show. When it would get down to the wire, and I felt like I couldn't do something as an individual choreographer, I felt really scared and kind of just like, what is about to happen? You know, how can we move faster? And his process is, you know, everyone's process is different, and I felt like I I think my anxiety got to me a little bit in that process, and I overreacted in some situations, and you know, apologized even recently. Like, damn, I was kind of a jerk in some of that. Like I was a little bit rough in that process. You know, and also I was just a new dad. I had had Valentina like 6 months before, so there was a lot going on for me personally in the project.
Mhm.
But once we got to stage, all that fire and all that, you know, tension, it turned into like diamonds. I felt like, and we just performed from another whole level of energy and of pure fire. Like we really performed from fire, and I just respected so many of the dancers on that project, and hopefully we'll see more of Shaping Sound in the next few years.
I hope so because it's it. I unfortunately have never seen you guys live, and that's a huge regret for me, just as a person who loves dance in that way, and have a profound love for you and people in that project, and so and people that I admire. So yeah, it's I hope that you guys get through the pandemic and like come out on the other side of this and be able to create again, because it's a really special group of individuals and creatives, and those we kind of have to like nurture and keep intact as best we can. And I love the fact that Gail came out there and supported you guys, because at the end of the day, we're nothing without backers and finance,
Yep.
right? Like we can't do our art without it. And so it's beautiful to hear that another dancer and visionary and choreographer was tapped in enough to say, no, you know what, I'm not. This is too special to for it not to like get to some place. And then, and I believe in what you guys are doing, so it's really really great. So yeah, absolutely. So tell me about choreographing for Dancing with the Stars. What was that experience? Who opened that door for you?
I had choreographed a few different, like we had done Shaping Sound, and I had performed a few times there. And then I got, one of my favorite singers, Maxwell, who I just have always danced to his music, of course, Women's Work, and, the
Yeah.
classic. And I got a call maybe a week or two before the performance, and I got to dance with Tyne Steckline, who is, one of the most epic commercial dancers. And we actually, it was funny, we were roommates with like 5 other people when I first moved to LA. Like,
Oh, it's full circle.
full circle moment. I was like, Tyne, you want to dance with me? And she's like, yeah, I would love to. So we got to work on that, and it was such a cool experience. And then Kenny Wormald and Julianne Hough were doing Footloose movie, and they had asked me to choreograph on Dancing with the Stars for that as well. And then there was one.
How did you connect with them?
With Kenny?
Mm-hmm.
So I grew up in Massachusetts and Kenny was from Boston, from the Gold School.
Oh.
We grew up since I was probably 9 or 10. I knew Kenny, and I was always a pretty shy kid, and him and Nick Bagger were the opposite. And they'd always be like, "Yo, come here, bud, come here," and they'd be like rapping and playing like all these like musical games with me and try to get me out of my shell. And they were always like huge inspirations to me. And especially once they came out to LA, I would just constantly ask them questions and call them or ask them like, how's it going out there? What's it like? Should I move to LA or New York? What do you think I should do? And they were like, just stay in ballet, stay focused, like don't move too soon, like, stay in Mass for a little bit, and then when the time's right, we'll be there. And the first person to pick me up in LA was Kenny. I'll never forget, like, getting into big LA, flying in at night and being like so overwhelmed, and picking me up at the airport with Nick Baga and just kind of showing me the ropes, and introduced me to LA, which was really cool. And then Julianne, did I meet Julianne? I think I met Julianne on that project actually when we did Dancing with the Stars, and she's such a sweetheart and easy to work with, and they just already had such a good friendship, and both incredible dancers, of course. So it was honestly like a very easy process in a lot of sense. My mom was actually there to help me with the process, and
Oh my gosh, really?
yeah. I was like, Mom, can you come? Like, this is early on in my choreography career. Like, can you come? Can you fly out? And then Kenny's teacher, Rennie, who is also one of my inspirations, he choreographed like my solo that Mia ended up seeing in New York City Dance Alliance.
All connects. It all connects.
I flew him out as well. I was like, yo, you got to fly out. Come stay with me. He's one of my close friends anyways, and let's surprise Kenny. So we surprised Kenny at the performance. Rennie came, his main teacher growing up.
Yeah.
And that was, just a great connection with Dancing with the Stars, and I loved working with them there, and all such professional, awesome people to work with. So, I ended up doing with Shaping Sound and the performance. I done like 8 or 9 different pieces that I got to do on the show.
Amazing. My mother's a huge fan, so she probably saw all of them.
Oh, cool.
So a reminder.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So have you ever felt the imposter syndrome that a lot of us in the field feel, especially when we're transitioning from one thing to another? Or have you always been really centered in vision and in goal?
Say that, sorry, one more time.
So have you ever had the imposter syndrome that a lot of us sometimes feel in those bigger situations where all of a sudden you're like, I'm working with Kelly Clarkson and I don't know what the hell I'm doing, or you're just really centered and you're like, I got this?
You know, I respect everybody I work with so much that, and I research them so deeply, that I naturally, I've realized it used to be nerves. I used to think it was nerves, and it was really just excitement.
Mm.
And that's what I've learned now. Like everything I do, even when I'm going to a studio, you know, and I've seen their work that other choreographers have done. I'm 33 years old now, and I still go into a studio with that excitement and that like, am I gonna rise to the occasion? You know, and I realized that, you know, after a long time of, you know, thinking that it was nerves before, it was just truly excitement and you know, just a feeling of like, wow, I get this opportunity. But I always have kind of inside that nervous or that tension or that feeling of like, can I do this? I always trust knowing that I'm going to put the work in, and hard work and dedication, like, you know, is what, you know, makes you feel confident, especially by day 2, day 3, you're like, oh, I got this. Like, we're going to crush it. And I know that I'll, you know, either just stay up really late, wake up really early, prepare before, meditate, do a yoga class, do whatever I need to do in order to perform at, you know, the level that I think is necessary for that individual project. And I, you know, someone that I look up to, like Crystal Pite,
Yeah.
you know, everybody does. I think, you know, her. You know, I was listening to an interview and she stated that. She said, you know, I have a lot of nerves or
Mm-hmm.
feelings of anxiety sometimes going into a project, whether it be NET or Terrace Opera, these massive pieces that she's creating. She goes, what makes me feel comfortable is my work ethic and my dedication to the craft, and knowing that I'm gonna follow through with the hard work. And once I just, you know, start throwing the paint, you know, I'm going to organize the paint once it's on the paper and kind of go from there as well. So that's something that I like to rely on, is like the hard work and the dedication that, you know, from my parents and them, you know,
In
just
your DNA.
it's in the DNA, you know, it's in the DNA. So that's what makes me feel comfortable.
Very cool. That's actually also very good advice for other choreographers aspiring and in the business currently. So let's talk owning your own business and conventions and how, I mean, you've obviously been around it your entire career, but what was that like to kind of step in and say, I'm gonna own my own thing?
Um, so I'll never forget, as far as like getting into the, because I feel like the first step for me was getting on Jump, like you mentioned. It was in 2009, and I had asked Bill for a few years, you know, I'm ready. I'm ready. Put me in, coach. Put me in. And I had, you know, gone and I had known Gil and he had known me and whatnot. And I, you know, sent in videos, and this was before social media, of course. And I just really wanted the job. And he kept being like, you know, I don't think you're, you know, ready fully, or just I wasn't getting the response I wanted. And then in 2009, I got a call from him who said, hey, you know, I want you to join Jump. And that was really a big turning point for me, as far as, you know, stepping into that realm and being on a convention that size. You're just introduced to so many dance studios and dancers. We teach around 30,000 dancers a year, and it's growing now. And it was just a huge turning point of,
Yeah.
you know, building those relationships on so many levels around the country, around, you know, U.S., Mexico, in Canada, and then just starting to really build my choreography through going to studios and setting group pieces and solos, and, you know, between 200 to 300 or 400 pieces a year. I do.
Oh, is it that many?
Yeah, it's
Wow.
I do quite a few pieces throughout the season. Uh, you know, it's grown over time. I started off maybe 30 to 50, and then over time got more to the 250 to 300 range. And that really has just helped me so much in communication skills, working with kids, knowing how to let go of my ego and let go of what I want my voice to be, but really looking at the dancers and saying, what do they need? What's going to make them look strongest and best and most comfortable, and bring their voices out as artists and young dancers as well. So that was a lot of growth in the first like 3 to 5 years of that. And then throughout that process, in 2010 or 11, we started Generation 4.
Mhm.
And I have so many close people around me, especially my family running it as well, that I trust and that I feel comfortable delegating things to. And I think that's a big part of owning a business is not trying to do everything yourself. And that was, life, because I see people who try to do everything themselves and get completely burnt out because they don't trust other people to do the job for them to do. So that's been a huge thing, I think, in my entrepreneurship is finding those people, trusting those people, and letting them just like drive 1,000 miles an hour their direction and continue to do what I do and have my communal energy by, at dance studios and with the kids and not completely losing sight of what I've always been a part of. And then once we started shaping sounds, one of my good friends, Ron Arpino, who also grew up in the convention competition circuit, since we were young kids, he became our manager for Shaping Sound. And then from there, he became a lawyer. And then he called and was like, hey, I've got this idea, to create CLI Studios. Let's talk about it.
Brilliant.
And we started that 7 years ago. He was getting, past his bar. And, I was,
start a company while you're doing the bar. Because,
24 hours a day, this guy, and he showed me immediately just his work ethic was even something I hadn't even seen yet. Cause he was just nonstop. Like we'd be talking till 3 a.m. like, all right, hit up this video, he'd be on the phone with this person, then going into work all day. And we just hustled like every day, all day. I taught the first 300 classes, interactive techniques for free. Just went in and experimented and just tried out this tech company. And then from there, we our first employees and kind of set sail.
Yeah, CLS is, you're the gold standard, especially now when everybody's trying to transition into that world. So you guys were way ahead of your time, which is really impressive.
Thank you.
Yeah, super impressive. So rapid fire questions for you. Mm-hmm. Who's your ultimate space maker? I have a guess, but like who's the person that's been there consistently through it out?
Definitely my mom.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
Yeah, I love that one. If there was one other person, so hard. Yeah, there's so many people. My friend
Michael. Who? You're breaking a little bit.
Michael Keefe.
Okay.
He's been one of my close friends since I was a young kid, and I call him all the time for advice, whether it be buying a home or, decision making or just really personal stuff. He's been one of my best friends.
He's one of your guys. Yeah. What is your best bad decision? A decision that you're like, I shouldn't do this, but I'm going to do it anyway. And then it turned out to be the best thing you'd ever done.
Dance related?
Doesn't have to be dance related. Not at all. Just in general, just life.
My wife and I, this is before her side of the family knew we were about to get married, but we got married in Las Vegas. And it was after 6 months. We met like 6 months before that, and we went to Vegas and we got married. And I told her, I said, "You should call your family." And she said, I'll call them. I'll call them. And the weeks went by, and she didn't call them yet. And then I'm flying into Mexico City, where she's from, and she's like, "I just told my dad, and this is gonna be a little bit rough. Dinner is gonna be a little bit intense tonight." And I sat down at dinner, had the conversation with her dad, and I thought he was going to strangle me for an hour. And then he popped a bottle of champagne and we celebrated. And it's been 7 years.
And 2 kids later and 7 years later. Good choice.
Yeah.
Did you ever have a fork in the road where you were like, it's either I continue this or I go and be a doctor? Significant fork.
I don't think so. No.
Nice.
I always kind of, even when I didn't like book a job or like a job fell through, I felt like there was always kind of like a turning point of like, okay, this is an opportunity to always kind of like jump full force at that.
Okay. Is there a moment where you were taught about betrayal in the industry?
quite a few, but I don't want to throw people under the bus.
No, you don't have to know names, but
Yeah.
it's what did that teach you? What did the betrayal teach you? What did you get? What did you learn out of it?
This is really hard to say, but you have to know who your true friends are. You really do. And like even sometimes when you think they're your true friends, they might talk, and like what you verbally say about other people sometimes should be left unsaid. You know, if you want to think something, that's fine. But sometimes if you don't have anything nice to say, just don't say it.
Yeah.
Even though you think as your friend, just don't say it.
Yeah. It's great.
Cool.
No, it's a good piece of advice, because I think, I mean, I've certainly had my moments too, and they're shocking and they're like devastating sometimes, you know, friendship ending sometimes, mentorship ending sometimes, and they do teach you a lot about yourself in those moments, because it takes two, right, in those moments. Even if you think you're doing all the right things, it's everybody's perception, and so I often feel that people need to be aware that it's there, and that it can happen. And that hopefully you have a system around you and a village around you to help you through that betrayal, because it can get real dark. So that's,
I think too, having outside friends outside the industry is really important. People who don't talk to industry people, whether family members or hometown friends or whatever it is, that you can get a different perspective at times, because for so many of us, once we're heavily in the industry, usually we're surrounded by the industry, and sometimes that could just be overwhelming when your only thought process and conversation is
that's really good advice. And my last question, Teddy, because I can talk to you forever, is who or what are you making space for now?
My wife and I are going on a date for the first time tonight. Actually, in a few hours, and we haven't been on a date in a long time. And I just bought her earrings today. So I'm really excited.
That's great.
Yeah.
Teddy, it's been a pleasure. One, just to see your face. Two, to hear more about your story. You know, we spend these intimate times together as dancers, and then we don't see each other for years and years. And you know, you're someone that I admire. Your journey is incredible. So thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate you so much.
I love you so much.
I love you too. And good luck with your move. And now you'll be on the East Coast, so maybe I can pop down. Boston's not that far.
Please, I would love that.
See you. Enjoy your date night. Peace.
Thank you. See ya.